Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Keep Arizona Blue, where we get into all things politics over a cup of coffee. Today, we're so excited to be joined by the president of Tempe School District Board, Armando Montero. Montero is a graduate of Barrett Honors College at ASU, a JD candidate at the ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. He's the treasurer on the board of directors of the Arizona School Boards Association, a Truman Scholar, and currently serves as a senior planning analyst in the office of the senior vice president. And he is also currently running for the state house in LD 12. Thank you so much, Armando, for joining us, and I'm so excited to speak with you today.
Yes, happy to be here.
Okay, so as you know, these conversations can get very serious very quickly. So we like to start off with something a little bit more lighthearted by talking about what mug we brought today. So I'll go first, and then I'd
Okay.
love to hear about yours. So I just brought this little sloth mug that I got from a small shop in Costa Rica. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I brought this is a mug that I got when I was in Sedona a couple months ago. So,
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll jump right into it. So we know that in 2020, at just 19 years old, you became the youngest person on the Tempe School District Board. But I want to back up way before you ran for office and got politically involved, and want to know what made you initially interested in advocacy and serving your community, specifically in education.
yeah, absolutely. So my political journey first started around my sophomore year of high school. And really the issue that got me involved locally, specifically at the school board level, was the issue of mental health and social emotional wellness. I went through a lot of my own personal mental health struggles my first couple of years of high school. And my sophomore year is when I ended up losing a close friend of mine to suicide. And so that is what galvanized me to get involved locally. And that started just looking at attending school board meetings, organizing some students in the district just to show up and talk during public comment, and really try to partner with the board and the district at the time to just raise more awareness and more advocacy around, the need for more mental health resources for students. And this was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. So obviously that issue continued to escalate once I started running for the board. But that's really the issue that got me involved locally.
Okay, that's really interesting because I feel like with a lot of politicians and candidates, we talk more about like the monetary issues when it comes to public schools, but I think it's very interesting and you're right, like our issues with our schools run a lot deeper than, surface level things like that. And so I think that that's really interesting and something that is still relevant today. So, and then so since taking office in 2020, what has been your biggest takeaway or lesson learned, whether about Arizona politics, education policy, or simply being a young person in public service? And now also you're running for state house in LD 12. How does this campaign feel different compared to your first run in 2020 when you were again just 19?
Yeah, I mean, definitely lots of lessons learned since taking office in 2021. I know I first joined the board in the middle of the pandemic. And so much of my first 2, 3 years of governing was governing during a crisis. And so joining the board at 19 years old, it was interesting to kind of see what the reaction would be, not just from fellow board members, but also from district officials and people that, we have to work with on a daily basis. It's interesting showing up to board meetings and having these career professionals with doctorate degrees now having to listen to a 19-year-old. So there's that initial sense of like side eye at first. And I remember several of my first board meetings kind of getting some comments. So I was like, "Oh, you're actually asking good questions." I was like, "Thanks." Doesn't come across the way you think it does. Um, but I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive board, and everyone at the district, is amazing. And I think that comes with showing up and putting our head down and doing the work. And I think that has been my way of governing since going to the school board, and something that I will continue to do if elected to the state legislature. Is, we're not there to get flashy headlines. We're not there to make flashy social media posts. We're there to get the work done, whether it's popular or not. And to do right by kids and to do right by students. And so, when we put our heads down and really focused on the work, passing comprehensive mental health policies, raising our teacher salaries and our classified staff salaries, ensuring that we have procedures in place to really focus on what our governance should be focused on, which is student outcomes. And so we've shifted a lot of the ways that we govern, spent on meetings, the way that we hold ourselves accountable, the way we hold our superintendent accountable. So that's been my biggest lesson, is really trying to find ways to kind of cut past all the noise that's out there and just do what's right by the people that elected us to these positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's incredibly impactful work, especially for obviously on the student end in Arizona. And then again, I know we keep stressing your age, but we are looking to see the shift of Gen Z force in politics. And so, as a young person in politics yourself, what changes do you expect to see as Gen Z becomes more politically active and starts holding public office in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think as more and more Gen Z people become, one, able to vote, and two, more involved in the political process, I think it shows that, younger people and Gen Z, should not just be ones that we say that we value or voices that we value when it's election season, but voices that genuinely matter, when we're facing and talking about some really difficult decisions, right? When we talk about some of the most pressing issues that our state is facing, from public education to affordability to healthcare to water, these are all things that young people are impacted by in many ways, in unique ways, that often I don't think are brought into the conversation. And so I think that, this is something that's important to show young people, that as we get more young people elected, and even if not, their voices matter, and that they should be involved and brought to the table when these discussions are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this next question relates to the last one. And again, you were just talking about having young people involved, not just during the election season, but,
Mhm.
all the time. So, what would you say to young people who may be watching this video or looking to get involved across the state of Arizona? If they are looking to run for office or get involved on the local level, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is never take no for an answer. If I listened to everyone that told me no the first time that I said I was going to run for the school board, I never would have ran, and I never would have won. I had an 8-person race for 3 seats when I first ran in 2020, and I don't think many people expected me to win that race. But we again didn't listen to the noise and kind of tried to cut that part out, and understanding of trying to amplify why it's important to have younger people in elected positions, especially at a school board level, who's making decisions for, young people in school on a daily basis. When I first started campaigning, we kind of shied away from that messaging of talking about my age. And it really wasn't until we kind of went all in and really focused on why it's important to have someone who's been through the school system recently, and can really speak to some of the challenges that students and young people are going through, from a unique perspective, is really when we started to gain traction. And so I think that, obviously, I don't think age is the end all be all, but I think it's important to recognize that young people bring a valuable perspective to these conversations, but at the same time also be willing to learn. Being 18 when I first started running, I barely knew anything about campaigning, let alone governing. And so it did take a lot of time to really lean on mentors that I could trust, um, to learn the ropes of how to govern, because none of us know. It doesn't matter what age you show up. It doesn't, when you first get elected, there's no handbook on how to be an elected official, how to be a school board member, how to be a state representative. And so I think, leaning on those people and being willing to learn and being willing to mess up, and to learn from those mistakes and to learn from that, and be open and transparent, and just do what you think is best.
Absolutely. And I loved what you said earlier about not taking no for an answer, because even as an 18-year-old who has been doing this for the past few years, sometimes I have to remind myself that public service is supposed to serve everyone. And I think that that is something that a lot of young people have to remind themselves and reinforce. So thank you so much for that
Yes.
advice. Okay, so wrapping it up again, ending on a more lighthearted question. So in midst of the election and all of the political chaos, what is your favorite shop in Tempe to grab a coffee or get some work done that other students can check out?
That's a hard question. I feel like there's so many great places. I mean, I would say I think, Steve's Espresso or Seattle Espresso are some of my favorite places in South Tempe that I always go to. They're pretty quiet, and so it's a great place to not only, relax for a little bit and get some downtime, but also, to take some meetings and get some work done as well. So those are two of my go-to places.
Perfect. I'll have to check it out. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Of course.